Oh my gosh, was that not the most original opening? I have never seen anything like that where a hero is like training the next generation and then they're called off in the middle of their training.
Whoa. Are you kidding right now?
Name one movie.
Hunger Games, Hannah, Commando.
Name 5 movies.
Red Dawn, Bloodsport, Patriot.
Name 10 movies.
Karate Kid Part 2, Empire Strikes Back, Iron Man.
Name 20 movies.
They don't want to watch that.
Welcome to the CodeX Cantina. I am Una.
And I am the Lister, Crypto.
We are starting our 3rd book in the Dark Tower series. We're going on our journey. We had a little bit of a snafu, right? So normally we've been doing about 120 pages for people to read along, for those of you that were looking to read along. We actually are doing 300 some odd pages. We're doing the first 3 chapters because we got done with our reading and we realized that there really wasn't enough content to do a video on, so we're going to kind of smash 3 chapters into one video.
I think there's enough to talk about, but it'd be just us rambling and kind of rehashing the book. There wasn't enough meat to dissect like we like to on this channel, like we've been doing with the short stories and some of the other Stephen King novels.
Well, and I still love it, right? When I say there's not enough to discuss, like you said, like it is kind of rehashing just plot, which isn't as interesting for what we want to achieve on this channel in terms of the bigger literary picture of what does this book mean to people.
This is a pretty straightforward story. This is one that could almost be an entry level into the entire Dark Tower series.
Well, let's talk about that real quick. So before we go into this section, could you start on this section? And I'm going to say no, you can't. I don't think you could. I think you have to start on book 2. Are you at the point where you think you could start on book 3 potentially?
I think that if you watched our videos, which you should go do. No, I agree with you. I think that you have to start with book 2 because you need to care about the characters. You're not going to care about Eddie. You're not going to care about Susanna, even know who she is and what she's all about. She's a very complicated character. You're not going to understand how the relationships start to form in this book either if you don't read the second book.
If you're a person that only cares about plot, like you're not really into characters and stuff like you just want action, sure, you could start here. But I think for our typical audience, we think you need to start at 2. So let's jump into the plot here.
Yep.
Basically, they're healing up. They're getting along now. Roland starts having mental paradoxes about Jake being living and dying at the same time. Suddenly, they're attacked by this gigantic cyborg bear named Mir.
Well, real quick, the beginning is also the training montage that we kind of made fun of at the beginning, that this is very standard in so many movies, books, comics, games, that you have the tutorial level training montage of the heroes, Rocky getting better and blah, 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 blah. So that happens as well.
And then,
with some pretty cool scenes.
No, there is. I think the Mir battle is actually probably one of the highlights of the book for me. But they defeat the bear. The bear and the robots start breaking down, so we get this idea of, okay, the world's moving on here. Like things don't live forever here. At least the robots don't. So they throw the jawbone that Roland's carrying around, and it kind of reveals the secret to Eddie as to what they need to do next. So pretty soon they kind of backtrack the bear's tracks to enter the beam. And then we kind of jump over to Jake and learn that he is also suffering from these paradoxes of being alive and dead at the same time. He goes to a bookstore, picks up a train and riddle book, and he finds a rose and a key himself. The voices stop when he holds the key. Meanwhile, Eddie becomes fearful of finishing his key that he saw in his vision. They approach the speaking place, a la the gunslinger. His dreams warn him of a haunted house where his path will intersect with Jake. Meanwhile, Jake has dreams of following young Eddie and Henry to the Haunted Mansion. Haunted Mansion monster attacks. Shocking, right? Every time we enter a plot point in this book, monster attacks. But
Demon attacks too.
Yeah, the demon attack. Shocking, right? In order to beat this level, you must defeat the mini boss. So they both draw a door and they're reunited. It's terribly compressed with what I did there compared to our usual things, but this is a lot of plot compared to what we're used to on this channel. Fair enough?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so first enough, Now, I shared this with you previously, but I want to share it with the viewers real quick. We had some people, we're doing this book chat with some other friends too, and they had the criticism, which is fine. Oh, this is ridiculous. We're 3 books in. We don't know what the tower is. We don't know what these doors are. We don't understand what's going on or what this Crimson King is. And that's fair criticism, right? Like you can make that criticism. That is kind of far. But I want to draw a quick parallel to Lord of the Rings with this book. Just in terms of total page count, okay? I'm going to bring up this little graph here. And you can see that the Lord of the Rings, if I look at the 3 books, which I know is technically 1 book, I'm going to call it 3 books. You add it all up together, and over here in the second column of percentage, this is the percentage of completion for the whole series, right? So if you read the first book, you're 35% into the whole series. Read the second book, you're 64%. Last book, obviously you're done. So halfway through Fellowship of the Ring, okay, what happens at the halfway part, Mr. Crypto?
They get to Rivendell.
They get to Rivendell, and what happens at Rivendell?
They rest up, and they make the Fellowship, and they get ready to go on their adventure to destroy the One Ring.
Right, pretty simple, and that feels like fair pacing in the grand scheme of things, right? Well, interestingly enough, if you add up all of the Dark Tower series here, okay, all the page count here, and then I start tracking the running percentage total, at the end of this book, The Wastelands, is 32%, which is about finishing the whole Fellowship of the Rings. Where we are starting this book, so after finishing book 2, when some of these guys dropped out saying, hey, this isn't for me, which is fine, we're at 17%. 17% is exactly when Rivendell happens, when the Fellowship forms. You know, Roland gets his Katet. When they talk about, okay, the goal is to now, so in the beginning it was get to Rivendell. And once they're there, they're like, okay, our new goal is we're going to destroy this bad boy, and we're gonna toss it into the fires of Mordor. Well, here's where we're like, okay, we need to go to the tower because this is what's going on. This is what the beams are. This is how the Guardians are. We have a lot more context this round in the same way that Rivendell gave the heroes context in that book, right?
Exactly.
And we even get a little bit of kind of a comparison where in Lord of the Rings, the ring spoke to him. It spoke to Frodo. And it was once he kind of put the ring on, he was at peace, right? That's when he found his center, when he was talking to Sauron in a sense, and his armies could find him. You even see that here with these keys. When they're not touching the key, they have this paradox that's driving them nuts. And as soon as they're touching that key, they're the magic ring that's going to bring them to the next step of this journey. That's when the voices stop. So a couple comparisons we can make here, right?
I mean, obviously, I think King was a fan of Lord of the Rings.
Well, the intros of the Lord of these books even call about how he wanted to make his own Hobbit journey.
Yeah.
So I think it's unique enough. I just think it's interesting to see some of the parallels here. And if we're fine with the pacing of Lord of the Rings, I think we should, in the grand scheme of things, be fine with the pacing of this book with when you find out what the tower is and how to get there, right? In my opinion.
Yeah. I think this one just feels slower because the whole series is 7 books and not, quote, 3 books. That can throw some people off. And we've discussed before, even on this channel, is that the first book can be a tough read. And even the second book can be a tough read because there's not as much action as your traditional fantasy sci-fi book you typically have.
Well, what are we getting? To me, it feels like we're getting 2 main themes with this book, and one is the roles, or what are the roles in this quartet, right? Lord of the Rings is really easy to be like, Legolas, okay, you're the archer. Gimli, you're the comic relief and the dwarf.
Yeah, the drunk.
Right. And I think you had a really good summary of the characters here.
Roland is the knight, and Eddie is what did I say? The bard.
You called him the mage, but I would almost call him the shaman at this point in time with his ability to interpret the signs, right? He's the Grafiki. Yeah. Like, oh.
Yeah. And then Susanna is the rogue.
She's like the rogue student. And I think
yeah,
honestly that those opening chapters have been in my opinion, the best part of this book, talking about that relationship and about how sometimes you have to face things alone. You know, sometimes you have to go through these trials and tribulations to become what you need to become, and no one can teach you that. And I think that's been the best part of this book for me so far.
I don't know if I would use shaman Maybe I don't know if I use that word or if I would use it again, because now maybe in the beginning he is, but I mean, like in video games and stuff, your character can evolve and change, and you can usually switch classes to whatever. I think that Eddie becomes something kind of different because Jake would be seen as like the wizard or the intelligent one. Like he would have high intelligence if you were playing like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, we totally buffed up his INT rating.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to spoil anything, but like...
I don't want to spoil anything, but here's the spoiler.
Come on, that's not a spoiler.
All right. So technology as a theme would be my other point.
Okay.
I don't know how to draw what the statement is yet. But you had Mir come out where it's a bear that's being it's being controlled electronically with this radar and this Shardik, which we'll find out more about later, the positronics company behind it.
Yeah.
You had
cyborg. So it's very futuristic tech.
Then you had all the other like little animals of the Chinese zodiac, almost like 12 guardians, the 12 signs of the zodiac. Like you had all these little different animals that kind of came out and started to break down too. Kind of bringing on the world doesn't go on forever for robots or technology. I'm not sure what the thesis statement is there yet. And then very clearly in that book, one of the books that he bought, the Choo Choo book, very clearly you have the guy giving love to old technology and maintaining it worked out better than, the new flashy toy or whatever. Like the classic old steam engine still came through. I think there's commentary there from technology too. You and I know where this story's going, and I don't know what the thesis statement is yet. I think I just need to keep reading, but I feel like there's some commentary here for technology that he's bringing in and directly juxtaposing it against the people, right? Like, I mean, look at Roland's world and what technology does he use? It's kind of like a steampunk evolution for him with what Gilead went through, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I think the technology... I think there is more than we think yet. Maybe I haven't read this book in a while, so maybe it'll refresh our mind as we kind of move along. We'll be able to make a better thesis on that, because I don't think it's just a plot device to move things forward. It feels like it's so integrated into the story. Because you could do it at throwaway real quick and say, oh, the technology's there just to show you the discrepancies between the two worlds, that Roland's time frame moves faster than our time frame in our world. And you could talk about, Earth and Midworld and this and that, and talk about timelines and the movement of time, and they even address it a little bit in this book when Eddie's talking about how he met Jake once before, and it was kind of messing with his head. So, I mean, you could make a quick, easy statement throwaway like that, if that's what, Stephen King's doing in this book, but I think there is more there, and I think that it'll open up as soon as we get into... the turd or whatever the next thing is called. What's it called?
Lud.
Turd. I knew it was a harsh word. Lud.
All right, guys. We are planning to go through chapter 4, part 16 for next week. With that said, if it's a little slower from a literary perspective, not fantasy or action, but just the literary side of things, we might finish this book out in just 2 video pieces if there's not enough to talk about. So
yeah, may have to go big chunk, guys.
So if you have a week where you hear nothing from us but chirps,
we're not gone, we promise. Don't unsubscribe.
Blame Stephen King. Don't blame me, man.
Yeah.
I've seen other reviews
to write shorter books.
I've seen reviews from other people. Like, people love this book, but they don't have much to say about it because there's not as much meat on the grill here.
Yeah, I mean, this is the action book, baby. This is go big or go home. I love it.
All right, guys, if you are looking forward to more Stephen King breakdowns as well as other literary fiction, please consider subscribing. We do videos 2 to 3 times a week, and we promise uploads at least on Mondays and Thursdays. So even if we don't do that video next Thursday, I'll have something for you. Peace.
Peace out.